Hey, New Day. I'm sitting here with Danny Stokes, and he's given me the update on his massive bike ride that you may remember, he was, well, tell us again where you were going from and to before being interrupted by the virus.
So I was on a bicycle journey that began in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. And my goal was to ride all the way to Ushuaia, Argentina. Yeah, so it's a journey of about 15,000 miles, and more or less,
Yeah,
depending on the route.
yeah. And how many miles did you actually end up getting to go?
So I made it 6,500 miles. I made
Wow.
it as far as Guatemala City, Guatemala in Central America.
Wow.
And it was at that point that I decided to pause the journey. The name of the journey is the Epic Bicycle Tour. That's
Nice.
to
That's
me,
pretty
it's
names.
an epic journey. So yeah, I
Yes.
decided to pause, come home to Seattle, and wait for a safer time to continue the ride. I guess I'll start with kind of like my last day on the ride. So I had reached the border of Guatemala and and crossed from Mexico into Guatemala. And my plan was to take about 3 days to cross that country and then into El Salvador. And as I'm sure most of everybody knows, the countries in Central America are very small. So within a few days, you can ride the couple hundred miles to cross these nations. And but on that day, I heard that the border of El Salvador had been closed. I decided to ride as far into the country of Guatemala as I could, where there would be a fork, and then at that fork, either continue along the coast to El Salvador or turn sharp north and go sort of up into the highlands of Guatemala, where Guatemala City is. And on the day that I reached that fork in the road, I called Shavella, my wife, back here in Seattle, and we had a conversation about what was going on back here, back in the States. And to me, it sounded pretty dire at that time. And it also opened my eyes to, wow, this is actually becoming something global. Up until that conversation with her, I didn't know that. I just thought, it was like another bird flu or another case of SARS, some of these things that have happened in China over the past decade or so. To me, I thought that's what was happening. But I realized, wow, this thing is going global. And if there's nations in Latin America that are already taking measures to lock down their borders to protect their population, then I need to take this seriously. So I made the turn and I went to Guatemala City. And in the span of about 24 hours in Guatemala City, right before my eyes, but I saw the airport, the international airport in Guatemala City, I saw it close. Like, wow. While I was there waiting in line with thousands of other people trying to catch flights. And there were actually 3 flights that I had been booked on, different airlines, that one after the other just closed down, no departures. I figured my next best option would be to travel overland, backtracking to Mexico, which was about 200 miles where I just came from. And, that's about at least a 2-day ride. So right. I was like, I need to get across the border into Mexico as fast as possible. I'll just take a bus. So I went to a bus station, and there was a notice on the bus station door that said all bus service in in Guatemala is suspended for the next 30 days by order of the president. As a last resort, I asked a taxi driver if he could possibly take me in his taxi to the border of Mexico. And the guy thought I was crazy. He's like, that's a long way. That's like a 5 or 6 hour ride in a taxi. Yeah. And this is a city taxi. It's like a taxi in Tacoma driving a passenger to the border of Canada. You know,
Right,
like
right.
city taxi wouldn't do that. So I said, hey man, if you have time to do it, how much would it cost? And he told me the price. It was a ridiculous highway robbery amount, but I was desperate. So the border. So I went to the border, and from the taxi driver couldn't actually cross the border. He didn't have the appropriate license, he didn't have the correct, I guess, business license to be able to do passenger service in Mexico. So they stopped him before we crossed the border. So now here I am with, you know, an 80-pound bicycle that I had packed into a box, another box with my wheels, and then a third bag of all my camping gear and stuff I've been carrying along. So there's no way I can drag this stuff across the border. Yeah. The bridge is about a half-mile long just to get across the river from one country to the other. So ironically, it was a pedal taxi that ended up transporting me across the actual half-mile wide border. And
wow.
So yeah, a lot of crazy things there on that last day. And then once I got back into Mexico, eventually, that's a whole nother series of crazy events. But but at least I was able to get out of Guatemala before. And my fear was they were going to close that country down as well and not allow people in or out. And then I'd just be stuck there even right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's so really, if you hadn't gotten out that day, you might have been stuck there. What was it like inside your head for all that time? Like, did it feel lonely, or did it feel like you could, you know, was there a sense of God about it, or what was it like?
Definitely felt lonely, especially, you know, at the end of the day when I would stop someplace to either camp or get some cheap roach motel room, and then I'm just like, well, I don't really have anybody to talk about, you know, the experiences of the day and laugh about, and or share the workload of, you know, whatever you got to do to get ready for the next day. So so yeah, those were lonely times. As far as sense of God and his spirit, that came through really mainly by the people that I met along the way. On a daily basis, I would encounter one person, more or less, that I would just connect with somehow. It could be like, you know, I'm at a convenience store buying some snacks, or maybe I stop at a taco stand, or maybe, I don't know, sometimes people would just stop me, like in their car. They would stop next to me and just strike up a conversation about what I'm doing. These encounters were always just, I don't know why, they're always just something beyond a mere acquaintance. You know, it's just something sort of special, something memorable about each one.
Do you have a piece of it that you're really most looking forward to, or place that you're most looking forward to seeing, or anything in the remaining part of it?
I'm really looking forward to riding through Ecuador. And I'm planning to visit Casa de Fe. And some people might remember that from a couple years ago. We went down there. A lot of New Day folks chipped in supplies that we hauled down there to Ecuador and took to this orphanage. So that'll be really fun for me. I'm hoping, my bicycle is a cargo bike, and so put some kids on the back, put some kids on the handlebar, and ride them around the yard a few times. Might be fun.
That's great. Well, thank you for filling everybody in on that. I'm glad you're safe and made it back when you did, and I'm glad we get a little glimpse of it, and look forward to hearing the stories when you finish the whole thing. So thanks for taking the time.